Good morning, PK. Good morning to my dear brothers and sisters and friends, family, visitors, you guys online, you guys in the next room, and a special good morning to our brand new sister, Sister Natalie. This morning, let's talk about a challenge that we face more in recent times in our communication with each other. Yes, I'm talking about the communication that we share online quite often. And then we'll carry on and talk about the communication and perhaps a little challenge that we have with God. This morning, we're talking about the phrase, turn on your camera, please. Now, this is something we have heard quite a lot in the last couple of years as a result of our online meetings. And this is when the presider, at the end of a meeting or the end of a Bible class or family matters will say to all those logged on, can you please turn on your camera? So, what do you do? Do you turn on your camera? Well, I know what some people do. I know what Steve does. I know what Ruth does. I know what David and Jenny do. I know what Neil do. We know what these people do. They turn their camera on and they're always online, and we know that. And I want to say, taking this opportunity to thank you guys for coming on and putting on your camera. It is greatly appreciated. But what I've noticed is that the majority of people do not turn their camera on. I want to know what's going on. Why is it so hard to turn on your camera? There is something at play here. I know for me, sometimes when I hear the presider say, turn on your camera, first thing I think is, oh man, I hope someone else turns on their camera. I think, come on, Steve, turn the camera on. You know, I want the presider to be supported, but sometimes I don't want it to be me that's supporting him. I want someone else to do that job. Sometimes I think, oh man, my house is a mess, I don't want to turn the camera on. Sometimes I think, what am I wearing? Sometimes I think my kids are noisy, don't want to put the camera on, all the lighting's not quite right. Sometimes I think, oh, if I go on, I might be asked to say something, and I don't know what to say. And there's other things that go on. Maybe you're actually baking, maybe you're doing a jigsaw puzzle, maybe you're doing Pilates. But what's happening is sometimes we just like to stay hidden behind this grey circle with our initials. It's kind of a safe place, isn't it? And in some ways we are sort of present. We are sort of in the meeting. We are sort of there. And so what I figured out, turning on your camera means that you must be present. It's a big deal. And so that it makes you much more aware of what's going on in the meeting. You have to be aware what's going on in the meeting. You are made that much more aware of yourself and what you're doing and your surroundings and what you're saying. What I'm saying is that when you turn your camera on, you are very present and engaged, and you have to be focused. And I just want to say, from the perspective of a presider, it is such glorious comfort when people come on after and turn their camera on, because it means you're not alone out there in the ether of the internet. People are supporting you. It is something I could encourage you to do. So let's be present. Now, in regard to the communication with God, when I'm communicating with God, I have made an observation that sometimes I fail to turn my camera on. Now, I believe what God is seeing when I'm communicating with him is this grey circle with my initials on it. Let me explain. I'll give you some scenarios where I think my camera is turned off. My camera is turned off when I go to the meeting sometimes, but my head is just not in the meeting. Sometimes I'm reading the Bible and the words are not getting in. Sometimes I'm singing to God, but I'm not really singing to God. And sometimes I'm praying to God and my mind just drifts off into my own thoughts. This is when I've got my camera off. And I reckon these situations must be really unsatisfying to God. We're in communication with him, and we are like a grey circle with our initials in the middle. We're semi-present. We're not there. We're not fully there. But we need to remember, turning our camera on is hard. And as hard as it is, we are focused though. But we have to be focused. When we turn a camera on, we are invested in the conversation. We are exposed, but we are present. So turn your camera on. So my catchphrase for the day is, when we are with God, then let us make the decision to be with God. Let us be present. So what about Daniel? What about Daniel and his communication with God? Daniel turned on his camera. It says 3 times a day, Daniel got down on his knees and prayed to God by an open window. Daniel was focused and he was invested in this moment of prayer. He was present with God. And you know, just before that famous prayer in Daniel 9, Daniel starts by saying, "And then I turned my face toward God and sought him in prayer." See, Daniel turned his camera on. Now, what about King David? King David turned his camera on. It says, "And David danced before the Lord with all of his might." And so David and all the people of Israel brought up this ark with shouts of joy. David was dancing and shouting. And then David later said to Michael, "I celebrated before God." And so this is how I see David turning his camera on. He was focused and invested in this praise to God in that moment. Now, you know what? I'm not just talking about we should be dancing on the streets and we should be praying at open windows. We can go into a closet and be present with God. Turning your camera on. Be there with him. Like that. In fact, it says, "But when you pray, go away by yourself and shut the door and pray to your Father in private, and then your Father who sees everything will reward you." So just be present and not a grey circle to God. I've got a question. How do we start our journey in Jesus Christ? By baptism. Now, yesterday we got the absolute pleasure of witnessing Natalie get baptised in the River Jordan. That's what it looks like, down in Orewa. What a pleasure it was to see her do this. And what I'm saying is that Natalie, in that moment, turned her camera on. Natalie displayed her commitment to Jesus. She presented herself to God and to the angels and to us who were lucky enough to witness that. This is how we start our journey. Very engaged, very focused and present to God. Jesus. Well, Jesus turned his camera on, and he did so quite young. When he was young, he was very focused and engaged and present with his Father, like in the picture there. And then Jesus went public for 3.5 years, and he was very present and very invested in all that he did. Despite the dangers, despite the shame, despite the evil eyes looking at him from the Pharisees, very present. But we can be sure that when he was communicating to God, he was present. He was involved. He was committed to the moment of that communication. And what I believe is that his presence in the presence of God is directly proportional to the way he presented God to the rest of the world. He was able to say confidently, "He who has sent me is with me, and he has not left me alone." Jesus was able to say, "The Father who dwells in me does all this work." He was able to say that he hath seen me, hath seen the Father. "I have manifested your name," Jesus said. Because of his closeness and the way he drew near to God, I believe it obviously helped him to be able to do monumental things. And as we know, He sacrificed his life for us. It's because God was close and he drew near. My time's up, and I'm going to leave you with one quote. Romans 6:13. Present yourselves to God as those who have been brought from death to life. Turn your camera on and present yourselves to God as though you have been brought from death to life. Thank you.